Hello, and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed, and thank you for joining me. We have been reading, my goodness, the bangerest of all bangering books. It has been amazing. Now, playing with my lights here, making me look a bit better than this bad lights. Oh, how's that? So, and we have been discovering that there are two fundamental jobs we have to carry out as human beings. One, remove the things that cause our sadness, and two, reach our highest happiness. Or to say it another way, remove our fundamental false beliefs about self and reality that cause our problems and blocks. So remove our blocks. You could call that purification, or you could call that escaping fate. And the second thing, use that freedom from our blocks to the Logos, to master the Logos, master language, master understanding. That's what the Logos is. I know it's a bit of a funny word, but we need it to reach our highest happiness. So, removing our false beliefs about self and reality and developing an understanding which facilitates the experience as well of self and reality, purification and perfection. What we have been reading in the text all the way through is the point that the greatest activity we can therefore participate in as human beings is dream analysis. Because our dreams give us what we need to, again, another two things: develop the questions and curiosity about those things, find the puzzle that needs to be solved, and the second thing gives you the material to solve the puzzle as well. So two fundamental elements: the puzzles and the clues, the questions and the answers about our purpose, which brings forth our highest happiness, and our purification. Isn't that interesting? So what's the issue? The issue is those problems or blocks that we are here to address and purify block us from our greatest activity. That's what it means to be a block. If it blocks you from, let's say you've got one of those child safety caps that blocks a child from opening the bleach and drinking all the bleach, that's not a problem. That's not a block. That's a good thing. So to understand human problems requires us to understand, or at least until you understand, keep an open mind and have the courage to try it out, our highest goals. It requires us to be pursuing those goals, not just pursuing them, but pursuing them with excellence. Try and do it as best you can, because in doing that, you surface the blocks not to drinking bleach, but the blocks to your most meaningful, highest goals. So if you want to remove your problems and the cause of you might notice that there is a cyclical process. Every time you do this certain thing, you find a certain kind of block. You get a certain kind of illness, headaches or a cold or something happens periodically. So our physical blocks as well are manifestations of this. Still playing with my lights. Let's go with this one. Damn it. There we go. A pro tip: when you're fixing your lights, don't stare directly into them. So, you have to be pursuing your goals, your highest, most meaningful goals to surface your blocks, and you have to be it has to be personally meaningful because you have to want to do them. If you don't want to, then you lack the motivation that you need to be able to go through the game, play the game, go through the process. So even if you are not interested in philosophy, you just want to remove your problems that you face, you got to get into philosophy too, because that's how you surface those problems. And philosophy is also fun. And philosophy is necessary to learn the way of solving problems. Because all philosophy is learning how to use your mind. That's it. Using the mind to know the mind and self. That's philosophy. That's all it is. One sentence. Put it on a bumper sticker. Using the mind to know the mind and self. So it's learning how to use your understanding, how to think properly. Yesterday we had people coming in who have been influenced by certain kinds of false beliefs from Buddhism. Certain things like thinking is bad, thinking is an illness, you can't think your problems away. That kind of stuff. What's that? A block. Why? Because it prevents you from understanding your own thinking. And as you solve problems through thinking, you reason through thinking, everything you do requires some sort of goal, some sort of plan to reach that goal, but also requires some sort of image of yourself. If you consider yourself to be an elephant, your choice of goals will be different. The way you reach your goals will be different. I need to get to the party. I can't go on the bus because I feel like I'm an elephant. I'm too big for the bus. Buses are for people. So it also contains a thought about yourself. And of course, it's our use of thinking and language, as well as our capacity of self-reflection, another two things. Notice a list of pairs. Maybe, balloons. Maybe they fit in a set. And if you see a set of two things in another set of two things, maybe you can find a likeness between them, and then you can have fun with analogy. What are our two things? Perfection and purification. Another two things, our purpose, destiny, our inevitable tragic failures, fate. What do dreams give us? Questions and answers. What are we supposed to give rise to when we read? Questions and answers. What do we make use of as human beings? Ousia, self-reflection, and logos. Isn't it interesting? And the skill or the activity that makes use of those two things, that connect to all those different sets, that makes use of your ousia and reflection, that helps you to reach your destiny and escape your fate, that makes use of questions and answers in a proper way, a skillful way, is the dialectic. That's the name for it. So our purpose, therefore, is twofold, but with one skill or one art. And of course, the dialectic can be applied to your problems in philosophical midwifery, applied to your highest goals in philosophy or reading. But because dreams know both of these things greater than you do, and specifically gives you what you need at the time you need to hear it, so it's not polite or nice, it's good, it's caring, it's providential. It's the kind of teacher or guide that we can use the dialectic with, because it communicates through the dialectic, through metaphors, analogies, as we've been saying, metaphors and analogies, that's also the dialectic. Communicates through symbols, analogies, metaphors, states of mind, drama, to convey to you the information about those two things, your purpose or yourself, and your problems or your false idea about self. Giving you puzzles and the clues to solve them. So long as you pay attention, that's the rub. The rub is, or the catch-22 is, or the difficulty is, even though all of that's true, because it's true, because it's good, because it's beneficial, our blocks will surface to block us from engaging in the most meaningful activity, and the activity that we would therefore say, if it's our highest activity, if it brings about the excellence of human beings, and as we've been reading in the text, Because dreams disclose the spiritual journey to everyone, there is no secret, hidden spiritual teaching. It's not esoteric. It's open to all human beings, therefore bringing in the new age or the new dawn of reason, the new stage of human development. Considering dreams do all those things and more, it's our avenue through the logos, to the logos. So it's logos as the method of understanding and logos as our goal, the intelligibility of self and reality, experienced directly and understood. What are our blocks? Pathologos, sick logos. Why are they blocks? It blocks you from the logos. So that's the catch-22. Seeing as what we've said is true and good and beneficial, we won't want to do it. So long as we are carrying a false image of ourselves that we think is real, we think it's just common sense, we think it's obvious. So long as we're carrying that and identifying with that, it will manifest as a state of mind that we will be in that makes it hard for us to do it. We'll be frustrated or distracted or angry. A certain state of mind that reflects your role within the family where you learnt that image of yourself. So maybe your role within the family is to be the clown, or to be the servant, be the Cinderella, be the slave. Maybe it's to be the fighter, to argue with anyone who challenges mummy and daddy. There are many roles we could have. But that role you can do within, that negative role you can do within that state of mind, that's a manifestation of that image of self. So an image of self, a state of mind, a role or functioning, also certain kinds of words. An activity where you put yourself down, you fight against yourself if you're the fighter, you tell yourself you're ridiculous if you're the clown, you say that your goals are not meaningful if you're the Cinderella. So the language that your pathologos, or for the Greeks the kakadaimon, the bad inner voice of the self, or the inner voice of the false self, your inner critic, some people call it, the logos of that thing will come up, and you have two choices. Become a slave to that, take it literally, which is of course barbarianism, taking the symbols literally, just like as we've been reading, the Greeks called those who take their religious theology literally barbarians, stupid idiots. To them they said, Actually, fuck you. Actually, fuck you to those people. It's a bit harsh.
Awesome, man.
Okay, it's awesome. So if you take it literally and say, well, if that voice is telling me that I suck, I guess it's literal, I must suck. That's called being a slave to ignorance, or barbarism, taking it literally. Our job is to learn the language mind communicates to us through, which of course is the logos, and is through metaphor, analogy, symbols, thumbs up, so that we can unpack the providential messages it is sending to us. Therefore, like our friends in chat yesterday who said, well, I believe from my teacher, from whoever influenced me, I believe that thoughts are a problem, or thoughts are a sickness. All that tells me is you don't know how to listen. You don't know how to listen to your thoughts. Your thoughts are speaking French, and you haven't thought that, all my thoughts are irrational and don't make sense. Hang on a second, maybe they do, you just don't know French. So if people don't understand the language of mind, the logos, then they could come to the conclusion, well, every time I try and do a meaningful goal, this voice or this thought comes up and tells me that I can't do it. Therefore, thoughts are a sickness. congratulations, you've invented Buddhism. Or one of the variations of Buddhism. Or Taoism. Actually, most spiritual traditions reject thoughts because a tradition that understands the nature of thoughts is a tradition who is following the Logos. And that is the correct or full or complete spiritual tradition. But the catch-22 is we're human beings developing these traditions. And human beings have the pathologos that blocks the logos. So for all human history, all of the things that we are making will be some sort of rejection of the logos because that's how our problems function. So if you're starting a new team or a new clan or a new religion or a new political group, it will in some way be opposed to the logos, be opposed to understanding, be opposed to thinking. Not because you want that, but because your problem wants that. That's why we call it a parasitic virus. You don't have it, it has you. So we can get a list as long as... Oh, fixing my mixer here. So you can get a huge list of traditions that reject understanding for faith or belief, that call thought sicknesses like in Eastern tradition, some of them. Or say the meaning of life is unknowable, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, of course. Because unless we are learning to understand the language of those thoughts that we are mistaking as a problem, we won't be getting the information from those thoughts that are being sent to us not because we want it, it's not polite, it's good. It's because they are appropriate to us at our stage of development, and they symbolically or metaphorically or analogically reflect the very problem we're in, so that if we learn the language, if we learn French, we can listen to our French teacher and learn what we need to do to solve our false image of ourselves manifesting in a negative state of mind that manifests in an activity or a way of functioning that functions in an activity that opposes that very understanding. So instead of going through that process, people just say, well, I am going to agree with my own bullshit opinions. It's not me that opposes thoughts, it's God that opposes thoughts. It's not me that thinks thinking is an illness, it's reality. So that's the nature of religious and political traditions. All they do is they take their own personal problem or ignorance and venerate it, universalize it, pretend it's subjective. That's what the word respect says. If you ever watch a movie or a TV show, listen for the word respect, then count to 10. I bet before you get to 10, there will be some sort of fight or conflict. Why? Because the word respect means I have a personal opinion, and I'm pretending it's the universal principle, and I'm pretending you should know what it is, and the fact that you're not agreeing with what I want, I'm making it therefore not a personal opinion, but universally bad, so I can justify inflicting the punishment that I can justify inflicting upon you because you're being disrespectful. See? It's a way of universalizing your own personal ignorance or opinions in order to vilify the other person, in order to justify violence or punishment. Why? Because that act of punishment is the activity that you are functioning through in a certain state of mind that follows the image of the self that you think is your highest excellence. In other words, our earliest teachers inflicted a kind of punishment or a kind of injustice upon us, and we believed that shit. We only believe it because we take it to be what's real and good and true. So what does that mean? If the soul of the human being seeks what we think is most good, real, and true, then this false image or idea or belief becomes the motivation for all of our lives. That's why we become zombies. There's only one thing we seek: brains, brains, brains. Nope. What do we seek? An opportunity to inflict the same injustice we suffered, because we think the act of doing that is good, because that's our highest idea of good. That's the pathologos image, and that's the nature of belief. That's what belief is. If you're believing someone, you have to believe them because you consider them good. Because to believe someone is to reject your own understanding. Why would you reject your highest cognitive capacities and your evolved function as a human being? Because you must believe that you are shit and that person ain't. That's the nature of human problems. That's called the pathologos. And your variety, so that's by the way, notice, to understand our problems, we have a hierarchical list of terms or causes. So now we're back into the causes. A certain image of yourself that you think is good and true, either as the inflictor or the victim. So we talk about people being cry bullies. Notice, if you notice somebody's problem, let's take the Israeli army who are doing a genocide. They are doing a genocide, murdering innocent children, or innocent human beings, and starving them to death and shooting them for fun, right? That's the doer. And the whole time, whenever anybody says you shouldn't do that, they say, "Oh no, anti-Semitism. We're the victims. Don't victim us. We have a right to do these things." So the bully and the victim. Cry bullies, it's called. But that's the nature, that's their particular flavor, obviously, to do with genocide. It's not hard to solve that puzzle. But everyone has their own particular unique flavor or kind of that dynamic. The parent, the child, the bully, the slave. Or the bully and the bullier, the tyrant, the slave. When you're stuck in your problem, that's why it's called the NPC virus, because you're stuck in a script. Everyone has that. But the thing is, you don't even need another person to play it. Because as you strive for your goals, you will be the tyrant to yourself. That's why a lot of people seek an opportunity to do it on others, because they think by being the bullier, they get a temporary respite from being the bullyee, because they're constantly bullying themselves. And they only believe it because they think it's real and good and true, which means when they have an opportunity to play a knower, not using an art of understanding, like a religious authority figure or a political authority figure or a parent, they're using that opportunity to do that very thing, be the bully. Be because it's what they think is good and real and true. The triad of the soul, good and real and true. So, while we have been seeking our highest goals by asking the question, what is our ideal set of causes? So for instance, to have an ideal house for Billy to live in, he needs the ideal material cause, like bricks. He needs the ideal activity. He has to get actually use the skill of building, not some bogus fake skill based on belief. It has to be based on understanding. He needs some builders who have that activity or understanding of building. That's the instrumental cause or the doer. And he needs a good model or paradigm for the house, blueprints. So in order for him to do that for the sake of which the whole thing began, our ultimate purpose. So the purpose cause or the first and final cause, because it's the first cause as it kicks off this process, but it's also the final cause because having a place to live in lets you know that you've actually finished the game. So the material, activity, instrumental, and paradigmatic cause, as well as the first and final cause, a list of 5. But what we've been talking about is What's the ideal of that? Not for building a house, but for our purpose as a soul. What's the ideal material soul you can be? How can you be the most open, curious, and receptive for your participation in the greatest activity, which we've just defined as dream analysis, which is listening to your thoughts, well, your dreams, but also there is a connection between your everyday thoughts and your dreams, but we'll get into that later. But how can you be most open and receptive to the activity of applying the language of French, or the dialectic, the language of mind, the language of the logos, to listen to your spiritual guide, your dream maker? If you're not the good bricks, if you're broken bricks, if you're closed-minded, or you're certain about your ignorance, or you'd rather fight because you're a philonikos, love of fighter, or you'd rather defend your opinions because you're a philodoxia, love of opinions, and not a philosopher, lover of wisdom, or a lover of truth, if you seek to play out the addiction of your problems, or rather look for temporary respite by bullying other people, so you have a temporary moment of relief from being the victim of your own bullying rather than giving up the game completely, how about no victims and no bullies? How about being a rational human being? How about being a good person? Unless you can give up that addiction, that certainty, you are not the ideal material cause of the soul. Therefore, you can't participate in the activity of dream analysis, the ideal activity for human beings to engage in. Because dreams give you the information to help in your upward journey through those ideal causes, and helps in your purifying of the negative version of the causes, your blocks and problems. Now, it helps when you have friends. Hey, welcome Liminal, welcome. When you have friends in the game, because as dreams convey to you what you need to solve your problems, we've just said your problems block you from doing and seeing what you need. So we would have a negative material cause that blocks you, in other words, belief or certainty or closed-mindedness, that blocks you from participating in the activity. And even if you are doing dream analysis, trying your best, you'll still have, what's the activity that our problems do? Projection or interpretation, which means to project what isn't there, projection, or leave out what is, to ignore what is. Because you're a material cause of the certainty. Your soul is in a state of closed mindedness. And we can call that certainty if you want. So what's the solution? Well, here's the thing. If you have a friend in the game, they can function as the builder that can help you engage in that activity that can benefit you, the material cause. How do you go about dream interpretation? So, dream interpretation would mean you've had a dream and you are projecting your own false beliefs onto it, or you're blind from seeing what is there. So you're leaving out what is, or you're adding what isn't. All that will do is confirm the false beliefs, opinions, and images that you're already carrying, that is the source of your blocks, problems, and suffering, and it's the very thing you're seeking to overcome by doing dream analysis. So in other words, our blocks function as a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe that you suck, You do certain things in a certain interpretive way that leads to the conclusion, leads to you having failures, and then you reflect on that and you said, well, hang on a second, I guess I was right all along. I guess I sucked all along. That's interpretation. That's that's one of the causes on our problems, the activity cause. We don't want to do interpretation, we want to do understanding. The use of understanding or thinking well. So notice, yesterday people were talking about thoughts are bad. But I was pointing out, no, it's not that thoughts are bad, it's that you haven't learnt to distinguish two different kinds of thoughts. Thoughts that are a projection or interpretation of your own beliefs, projecting it onto the world, causing your problems, or actually relating to what's there through actual use of reasoning well. That's understanding, and that's the activity or skill of the dialectic. So we want to use the dialectic to not interpret, but to understand our dreams. And if you do that, then even these interpretations become sources for insight. Because if you can listen to your dreams, they will give you information and puzzles to solve where you can see, oh my God, I've been doing this kind of interpretation the whole time. I never even knew. That's why you can't blame anyone. They think they are experiencing what's real. But our dreams will allow us to see the way in which we falsely interpret reality, causing our problems. But the catch-22 is, first of all, as this is the most meaningful activity, it's going to be the thing you are going to least want to do. You have to have a lot of courage and a good character and open-mindedness. You have to be a really awesome kind of a person to be willing to do dream analysis anyway, because your blocks don't want you to do that, because it will put an end to your blocks. It will make you free and allow you to reach your excellence. And your blocks function as blocks to block your freedom and excellence. So you got to be brave. But it's your practicing of being brave and doing it anyway that's your training to be the ideal material cause. You're not just a regular Joe, you're a courageous material cause. You're a courageous person, you're a brave person, you're an open-minded person, you're a curious person. Working through my projections feels inevitable. Yep, that's right. You will face your projections. That's why we do dream analysis, because dream analysis will give you information about your highest goals that you're seeking, and you need to be seeking your highest goals, otherwise you won't have the motivation, what they call in film writing, the stakes. You need the stakes. Harry Potter won't leave the Shire. Wait, Frodo won't leave the Shire in Lord of the Rings. Because he's comfortable there. He's used to that way of being. But if Middle-earth is in trouble because of Sauron, now he has the stakes. Luke Skywalker won't want to leave the comfort of his family way of being, his family way of life. Unless Darth Vader is threatening the universe, those are the stakes. Your stakes is to be seeking with all of your heart and soul your most meaningful goals with excellence. No one else's goals, yours. Personally meaningful goals with excellence. That provides the stakes to go through this process and develop a good material cause. Become a good soul. Become a good bean and a good noodle. Courageous. Develop courage. Develop temperance, keeping your cool. Develop wisdom to be ruled by logos as much as you can. To be the virtue of justice, to do this at all times. Those are the 4 virtues. Also, on the board. Keeping your cool. Whoops. Kind of like being a good material cause. Courage is what you need in your activity. The doer, the instrumental cause, the leader of the conversation, the leader of your soul, the logos. To be led by the logos or is the virtue of wisdom. The paradigm, the model cause, justice. You do it at all times, just like the paradigm. You follow the blueprints at all times when you're building a house. So even the virtues match with this paradigm. So if you are blocked from seeing what you need to see, good thing there is more than one person in the game. You need to look for the instrumental cause. Oops. Look for friends who are also in this game, also in the Fellowship of the Ring, also Jedis or learning to become Jedis, because they can function as the guide to ask, what's the art? What's the activity? The dialectic. What's the dialectic? The skillful and artful. Artful means skillful and beneficial. So the artful use of questions and answers. They will ask you the questions about your dream. They will judge your art. Iron sharpens iron. Yep, well said. Those in the logos can benefit those in the logos to reach the logos. It's a win-win-win-win.
Win-win-win-win-win.
So they can ask you artfully the questions and help you judge the answers, not based on what they think their problem is, your problem is, not based on what you think your problem is, but based on what's in the dream. So the activity cause, the ideal activity cause would be dream analysis. So it's also the mean cause. So you, as the pregnant party, and the dialectician, as the guide or the artisan, can both focus on this one thing. That's how you can connect. Otherwise, like yesterday we had that weird guy on the chat who was saying, I have all of these opinions and beliefs, and all of them happen to be opposed to what you're doing here, wanting to understand, wanting to develop. I think it's crap. But the message to him was, we can't do anything with that. There's no way we can connect, because all you are doing, so let's look at it this way. The mean cause. We lack a mean cause. So Diotima, the master of the logos, who's a woman, by the way, so sexism can't be a thing, taught Socrates. But because because we can look at what Socrates said, and Diotima was looking at Socrates as the teacher, we can become like Diotima. That's the Dharma. So when someone comes in a negative sense, like Weirdo yesterday, and said, hey, here is Weirdo, and I have all of these opinions based on who knows where you got them from. I mean, we know where he got them from, his parents, because that's where everyone gets their false beliefs that are in opposition to understanding and philosophy. But without dream analysis, we have no way of looking at where he's getting all these stupid opinions from. But if we do dream analysis, Weirdo can look at the dream, and we can look at the dream, and then we can go through the understanding of dream analysis, because your dream will surface what is right about your development of understanding and encourage you to move forward, direct you in your forward movement, pat you on the back, but it will also pull you up about your mistakes, your false beliefs and opinions. And it will also give you the clues about both. It will give you the questions and the clues about both. Otherwise, what's going to happen? Weirdo has his stupid ass opinions. We have no idea what they came from, and we disagree with those opinions. That's belief. There's no mean term. There's no shared connection. So what did he do? Fight. What did he do? Started telling me what to do. You look it up. What do you start doing? Criticizing me. You're not being polite. I don't like it when you disagree with my false opinions. And see, that's respect. Of course, a good person would want you to disagree with their false opinions. That's called learning.
There's only two options at the end of an argument. One, you're wrong, but now you always get to be right about that topic going forward. So you get to learn something, which is always a plus. Or two, you're right and you get to revel in being right.
So those are the two things. You could either be wrong and corrected, or be right and get to share what you're right about with your friends because you've gone through it in understanding. But we need that mean term. That's the text when we read. That's the dream when we do dream analysis. And what happens without it? Fight. Conflict. But hey, that's called being a dick. So you also have to find a way of justifying being a dick, doing the same sort of bullshit that his parents did to him. That's where the word respect comes in, or polite, or nice. These are all words that take, hey, I want to find a reason to make you bad. You're wearing a black hat. That's impolite. That's disrespectful. Aha, got you. I've clip-chimped you. I've found you making a mistake. Now, the mistake isn't there. It's just a projection of your own ignorance. The same way that his parents said, you reading, you're doing ballet dancing, that's disrespectful. I'm going to beat you up. Now, of course it's not disrespectful. That's his parents' ignorance. But as a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, as someone stuck in that house, you have two options. Challenge them, difficult to do when you're new to language, and can often result in your death, or take the blame. I guess I'm right. I guess my mind is wrong. I guess I suck for wanting to do ballet. That's what he's doing. So he came in and he said, hey, when you didn't immediately agree with my stupid ignorance, and when you didn't pretend I wasn't trolling when I obviously was, your job is to be blind so I can be the bully, just like my job was to be blind when my parents was the bully. And because you're not doing it, the next step in my NPC script is to blame you for not buying my bullshit. You're being impolite or you're being rude. And what did he say next? He said, because you didn't do what I want, I am justified in being a dick. I was only being childish because you didn't agree with my ignorance. As though it justifies it. That's the steps in the drama. His dad's job was to inflict some sort of stupidity and ignorance and injustice. His job was to agree with it. So that's the sadism of belief. Now, Dad, well, I have all this power to be stupid and hurt people, and they don't say anything back. That's billionaires. That's fascists. That's religious authorities. They get a kick out of being bad and looking at people as they don't speak up. But the next part of the script is if they do speak up, they have a word to vilify them. You're being disrespectful. You're being impolite. You're being woke. You're being anti-Semitic. You're being heathen. You're being a sinner. You're being a heretic. You're being an infidel. None of these words are legitimate. All they are is a way of vilifying someone as part of the NPC script they learnt from their household as children. Because once you've made someone a villain or bad, the next part of the script is violence. But how can you justify violence? Punishment. So now that you've made them bad, the next lie, pathologos-based ignorance, is to say, now that you're bad, the way you're made better is me hurting you. Which is garbage. You don't learn math by the math teacher hurting you. You don't learn to skateboard by other skaters hitting you with their decks. All violence does is distract you from reflecting on the causes of the mistake and teaches you don't get caught. So that's what he was doing. That's what all human beings do in their NPC script. That's the nature of savagery. That's why we have war. That's why we have genocide. That's why we have exploitations and slavery. There are only a few steps in that script. Do a bad thing. Someone speaks up. Dump a word that universalizes your personal family ignorance. Heathen, sinner, disrespectful, impolite. Now you vilified them. Next step, the false idea of punishment, that somehow they're made better through violence. All to justify an opportunity where you can sit in daddy's chair and be the one doing the violence. In other words, all of the steps in punishment, in belief-based ignorance, in debate, in words like polite, heretic and stuff, all they are steps to reach their ultimate goal that they have been seeking the whole time. Their idea of what's real, good, and true. That they're carrying as an image of their parents who did it to them. So that's the triad of the soul. Everyone, by definition, seeks what they think is real, good, and true. The difference is, by waking up to ousia, self-reflection, and logos, understanding, which is the dialectic, by learning and practicing the skill of dialectic, you can actually understand what's really good, true, and real, and be motivated towards your highest goal. If you don't, you are a zombie NPC barbarian in the script of your family ignorance called the pathologos. What you'll be seeking is to play out these old ass, always the same, whether it's a fascist calling you woke, or a Christian calling you a sinner, or a Jew calling you a goyim, or a Muslim calling you an infidel, it's all, or some bro on the street calling you disrespectful, or some person in chat saying you're impolite. It's always the same steps of bullshit. It's just a way to vilify stepping out of the acceptance of their tyranny by universalizing their own ignorance. It's not me that doesn't like black hats, it's you being disrespectful. So they can reach their goal, and that was the whole thing to begin with. All of these lies are just steps to reach the goal. This is called the Pathologos Peters principle. Human beings are just looking for opportunities to play out this bullshit so they can be the knower. Only their idea of what it means to be knowing, to know the good, the real, and true, is garbage. It's a belief based on physical appearances. That's the image. What we've just described is all human life. What we've just described is 80% of dreams. 80% of dreams demonstrates this very drama playing out for you, representing your false idea of the self that you're seeking. That's the cause of all your problems, injustices that you inflict on others or suffer yourself. Because these steps you also do to yourself. That's the inner voice of the pathologos, or the kaka daemon. So we're just doing to others what we're suffering ourselves in each moment. And dreams tell you all about it. Our job is to listen. Otherwise, doesn't matter what I said to that guy, he will always be stuck in this script. Whether it's a troll, whether it's saying I'm impolite for disagreeing with his or telling the truth about him being a dick on purpose, being a troll. Not not babying him for his ignorance. Cry bullying. He come in as the bully, but as soon as someone said you're being a bully, cry about it. So he can vilify the other person, so he can justify. It took him 2 sentences to find a justification for playing out the horseshit, childish abuse of his family. That's the nature of problems. Also, dreams. Have 2 sentences that you remember in your dreams. You've got enough to work with. I think he was using different terminology and used hostility during a misunderstanding. Well, yeah, you're being polite to him. But the thing is about being polite doesn't help. If a bully comes in and beats you up for their lunch money and you say, well, you know, he was having a hard day, then he's going to come back and do it tomorrow. And if everyone lets him do it, he'll think, well, this is my ideal way of being. Donald Trump, Netanyahu, Putin, Hitler. Surrounded by people who be polite instead of being good. Now notice, I'm not being as straightforward with you. Well, I am being straightforward with you, but you're more receptive to it. So you're actually listening to the words. He didn't give a shit about my words. He didn't pay attention to anything I was saying. Because he didn't care about what I was saying, he only cared about his image. But to you, it doesn't feel like I'm attacking you. Because I'm not, I'm talking about universal principles. It applies to all human beings. Necessarily, it's the nature of human problems. But that's only because you're more open-minded, curious, you've been reading for longer than he has, and you seem to be genuinely seeking truth. He doesn't have any of those qualities. He's a lesser material cause than you. We're not all the same. Well, we all have the same causes, but we're at a certain level of development. At no point did he give 2 shits about anything that I was saying, and at no point did he give 2 shits about the truth. All he was looking for was a way of justifying this dude here. I suffered this kind of horseshit from my parents. All my life becomes is finding an opportunity to justify doing it to someone else. That's why the billionaires could be solving hunger. They don't. They starve more children. The politicians could be helping everyone meet their universal human needs. They don't. They are building more concentration camps. They're taking away workers' rights. The religious people could be creating a utopia where we never oppress anyone and we look for the sameness like we're doing here. This is how we're the same causes, the same purpose, the same self, the same mind, the same logos. And create a world where we never believe anyone, because that's the nature of ignorance and savagery. We develop understanding of thoughts and thinking to reach our highest enlightenment. But notice, those religious authorities never, ever do it. Whether you're a Christian, a Jew, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Taoist, or a Hindu, it's always the same game. It's always someone trying to get to the top of the pyramid where they can use belief, either saying, your questions are a sin, your thinking is an illness, all thoughts are suffering, don't think about what I'm doing, don't judge me, bro, let me do my injustice. And of course they are, because they're human creations. Human beings seek this state. That's called the pathologos. One way of finding an opportunity to do that is being weirdo yesterday and acting like a dick, trolling, trying to take over the conversation, being as rude as he can, and as soon as someone says that's bad, getting all butthurt about it. Oh no, you're being impolite. That's one way. Another way is saying, I am Buddha. Believe me. I am the chosen one, says Paul. I'm better than Jesus. Believe me instead of Jesus. It's all the same. And it has to be the same because it's the nature of human problems. The only way out of it is to forego our addiction to our false images of what's real, good, and true, and go through the process of making use of your self-reflection, ousia, and your understanding, logos, to do two things. Find this dude, balloons. Find this dude, because this is the first cause. I would defend some of those traditions outside of strict dogma. There is some gold there. Well, becoming the Buddha rather than being the Buddhist, for example. Sure. It's not all ignorance. We're still communicating. He still was able to type. He could still use the English language. He still made his breakfast. But that's the nature for all human beings. We are motivated by this. We have a shallow pool of logos, a shallow pool of reasoning, enough to make breakfast, enough to write a Bible or whatever. A shallow pool of self-reflection, enough self-reflection to not reflect on the nature of belief and understanding, but to reflect on dear leader at all times, praise dear leader at all times, be it Netanyahu or Moses or Jesus or Buddha or Trump. We want to escape the chains of that by recognizing that this state of being, that was the final step in the drama. What's the drama? Be some sort of dick. Wait for someone to say, hey, that's not good. Religion isn't good. Being a dick isn't good. Hurting people isn't being good. What are the Nazis and government in America doing? Kidnapping children off the street by masked KKK thugs isn't good. Then they can turn around and say, oh, you're challenging the family clan way of being? You're a heathen, a heretic, some word that makes you bad and other. You're an illegal immigrant. You are awoke. Which is used to then bring in the idea of sadism or punishment. Now I get to torture you and rape you because it teaches you a lesson, says the KKK, says Donald Trump. Right, proud heathen. So that they can be this guy. So Trump can torture and abuse those children the same way his daddy and mummy tortured, abused him. The same way their parents tortured and abused them. The same way their parents tortured and abused them. That's called the family curse in mythology. The cycle of violence. The history through the past of ignorance and injustice that goes all the way back to the cave. So what? So by seeing the final cause, that for the sake of which is that's a bitchin' expression. That for the sake of which he went through all this effort. He used his life energy. He used his precious moments on this planet. He used a potential conversation with a dialectician. Imagine meeting a dialectician. Imagine running into Michael Jordan in his prime. And instead of having a game of one-on-one, you started yelling racist remarks at him. So that's another way of not getting your jobs, not taking the opportunities. So that's another manifestation of a block or problem. We've got a whole bunch. Not having a good goal, not seeking it with excellence. When you get it, not understanding it and cultivating it and nurturing it. Another way is missing an opportunity. So We have noticed the final cause, or that for the sake of which, but because we know it's also the first and final cause, this image, false image of the self, or the false image of the good, true, and real self, begins the whole process. That's why in whatever you do, if you notice, like even in meditation, let's say, this is a good example. You got a simple goal, count to 10. This is sitting on a mat. This is the only way in which it's useful. All you're doing is you're setting yourself a simple goal. Now, ideally, you could be contemplating a idea from the text you've been reading. So using your imagination to imagine what beauty is or what reality is, using the logos or the words from the text, developing a dialectical understanding. That's a nice way of sitting on the mat. But whether it's that or something simple like counting to 10, and you notice a distraction into a daydream or a fantasy or a tangent, you don't have to play it out. You don't have to go through the steps of the drama. And for our society, you don't have to genocide another people. You don't have to do another war. You don't have to destroy the planet. Because when you notice a tangent, because you know the final cause is this dude, but it's also the first cause, you can reflect on the image of yourself here at the beginning, because that image of yourself contains the whole thing. Contains all the steps, contains the state of mind you go through, contains the words that we'll use to justify this bullshit, and also contains the false image of the self as what's most real, good, and true that you're seeking the whole time. All of that is inherent right at the beginning as the first idea of the self. That's why the best meditators always sit on a cushion that has underneath it a notepad and pencil. Because whatever their thing is, counting their breath or whatever, then as soon as they have a tangent, they reach under their cushion, they pull out the notebook, and they write about this guy. But because that idea of the self at the beginning is hard to see because we take it for granted as ourselves, it's better, or it's easier to find, I've noticed, insights in meditation. Sure. You could say dialectic is the ideal form because you're sitting quietly, you're focused, you've got a question, you're imagining. A lot of meditation is involved, visualization, sometimes people call it. It's just making use of your imagination. You're using your highest understanding too. That's unique to philosophy because, again, it's the logos. All human people who have not gone through dream analysis and midwifery are carrying some opposition to the logos, so it's rare to find a spiritual tradition that embraces understanding. If you find one, it's probably the highest. So because it's hard to see your the original self in the beginning of the idea, and what we said is we want to look at that because it contains everything that plays out, all of the steps, all of the states of mind, all of the steps, all of the words leading to this goal. Because it's hard to see what you think you are, all of these things, write them in your notebook too. Because all of these things are clues about the inherent idea of yourself that contains all of these things together as a whole. So the first image of yourself carries everything that will play out. And your job is to see that. If you see the first cause, you can become free of it. But because it's difficult to see, we need clues to direct us to it. Those clues are the drama, the states of mind, the steps. That's the significance of existing in time. Time gives us an opportunity to play out either the false image of the self through those dramas in everything we do, our tangents, our distractions, our daydreams, our problems and relationships, and the true idea of self, the actual meditation, dialectic, the actual learning, because we are trying to see the true nature of the self that transcends physical description, but contains inherently within it the logos. So it's the cause of divine luminosity. It's the cause of the physical universe. It's the cause of all of the laws and principles. It's the cause of language and reflection. It's the cause of everything that exists. But being its cause, it has to be beyond the realm of mind. It has to be beyond the physical world. So to use the analogy of the sun, it's the sun itself that gives rise to the realm of mind or divine luminosity or pure being as its sun rays, which then creates the physical world of flowers and trees. So there's our physical world, there's the spiritual experience of mind, and there's the self which transcends everything. But everything that overflowed or unfolded must have been inherent in the sun itself for it to be able to be the cause. That's our purpose. Our purpose, therefore, is to reflect on these two things. Either the false model of self that we're carrying, to discover it, that you will only get by looking at the clues, which are the effects or the manifestations of that false idea of self. Your drama, your fighting, your conflict, your sadness, your negative self-talk, the words that you use to justify your violence, heathen, heretic. Do you call someone a woke, or do you call them a sinner? Do you call them a heretic, or do you call them a goyim? Do you call them a what do you call them? What's your word? What's your word to vilify yourself and others? To free ourselves from that garbage, but also the exact same thing, not applied to the false idea of the self, but applied to the true idea of the self that transcends all qualities and experience, meaning we have to learn a whole different language to understand that. And to get clues about it in a similar way, we look at how the self manifests as creating the world of reality, which is metaphysics or philosophy, the realm of mind, the causes, principles, and preconditions for our physical world. But also you can trace that back through our physical world. Do you notice beautiful things? Do you notice all people seek what's true, good, and just? The rays of the sun, like projections from the true self and lower self, which we can choose to follow or ignore. Right, there's two. So as we talked about the true self, which you have to do some sort of learning to see, because it's hard to see. So some people call it nothingness or emptiness or void or oblivion, because it's hard to see what's there. But the training is to examine the physical world in time, have experience even of the sun rays or the realm of being in contemplation, in the spiritual experience, which you can come in and out of. You can have a bunch of times if you're doing it. But being in time gives us an opportunity to reflect on the fundamental nature of our physical world and the fundamental nature of mind, so we can trace it back to its first and final cause, the self, and see what was difficult to see. Because we've learnt the language is called the dialectic or the logos. Similarly, there is this exact same stages for our problems, not the actual self or son, the bullshit one you got from having to survive your upbringing. Taking the blame from the ignorance of your parents, who took the blame from the ignorance of their parents, who took the blame from the ignorance of their parents, all the way back to the cave. You taking the blame, you wordlessly, notice no words, you wordlessly, when your parents shut you down, the way Weirdo yesterday tried to shut us down, when your parents did that to you, but because you're 3 and 4 and you're dependent on them, you pretend or you believe they are the good, you believe they are true, you believe they are real, you believe they are beautiful, you believe they are just. All of these terms we're supposed to be learning in this real game of self, because all of these terms or logos or understandings and experiences tell us about the inherent self, because somehow the inherent self gave rise to all of those qualities in the divine luminosity experience. That's metaphysics. That's highest understanding. That's philosophy. So we've got a fake metaphysics, that we wordlessly apply to our parental figures when they were being the opposite, when they were being bad and not good, false and not true, fake and not real, ugly and not beautiful, unjust and not just. That's our problem. That's our way of being that we seek. So we're seeking the good, true, beautiful, just, but we're seeking the false image of it. That's why people feel justified in killing millions of people. That's why Weirdo yesterday felt justified in coming into some place he hasn't even been in, being the most impolite and trying to say something so fucking stupid. You can't understand anything beyond opinions. The most garbage thing I've ever heard. Which specifically functions to shut down everything good about the human soul. So not only the stupidest, but also the worst. Because he thinks he's beautiful in doing that. He thinks he's big, tough, strong guy. Because he's imitating his parents. So when our parents did it, we walk away with a false image of ourselves. That's this guy here. If that's what's good, and I could never have come to that conclusion, I would never have thought that, there must be something wrong with me, because it's definitely not something wrong with dear leader, dear cave tribe member, dear parent, dear Trump, dear Hitler, dear Netanyahu. But for all human beings, it's our parents. So, because it's beyond words, not because it actually transcends words, but because we didn't put words on it because it was too dangerous at the time. So we didn't put words and we didn't ask questions. Hey, if dad's freaking out when I did this everyday normal thing, reflecting on myself or doing something for myself, then imagine how mad he would be if I questioned that. Hey, my dad's been a Christian his whole life. Imagine how furious he would be if I questioned this bullshit belief, which would also throw into question his whole fucking life. So, no questions and no words. Therefore, like the self that's beyond everyday use of language, you can still understand it, but it's a higher level. So too is this idea of self beyond words, not because it's actually beyond words, but because it was too unsafe to put words on it at the time. But you can get clues about it if you trace back its functioning in the steps of the drama. That's called being a philosopher. Sherlock Holmes. You want to find Moriarty as the root cause of the crime by looking at the crime scene. That's called philosophical midwifery. Tracing through the steps of your problem, manifesting. Some images stay there if not words. What do you mean? Say more words about that. So, philosophical midwifery is the process of reflecting on the manifestation of those steps, which manifests the inherent first cause, and which is also the final cause. It's aiming for you to, that's why it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's why opinions are fucking stupid, because if you engage in debate or opinions, your final conclusion from early experiences, well, you don't know that. You have to go through philosophical midwifery and dream analysis to see if you can free yourself completely from your ignorance or not. So be open about it. Take both ideas. Maybe you can't, maybe you can. You have to try it and see. So, the act of using the dialectic to trace back your problems through your past, either within a single fantasy or through your whole life or through your dream, is philosophical midwifery. The activity of tracing back from the physical world to the non-physical world of reality to its cause, the self, through the dialectic, is philosophy. And dream analysis is the greatest activity because it gives you both. It knows, your dream master knows your false image of yourself. It knows how it plays out in your life, to the point where 5 times a night it will give you that. It will create a movie starring this guy, and the movie will play out the drama and end in the failure. It also knows this guy, the good one, the actual self. And it knows how that manifests in the reality and also in the texts we read. So it will give you high states of mind of the self and will also play out a drama reflecting what you're reading to give you insights into your philosophy goals. So it's always the same. The NPCs are stuck in the first and final cause of the false image of the self. Therefore, we can put it up here. The first final cause, the false image of self. Therefore, if they don't wake up to the dialectic and the meaning of life, to master the dialectic, all their life will be is meditating on the false image of self, contemplating the false image of the self, reliving it over and over in every relationship, in every drama, in every dream, in every sport, in every goal, in every fantasy. They are just contemplating this over and over again, meaning when they die, they will leave here more identified with the false image of the self than when they began. The unexamined life, as Socrates says, is not worth living. This is also debate. If I was to debate that weirdo yesterday, all he would do is just defend his false image of himself and his false ignorance, despite being wrong, because that's what his daddy did. Meaning it's not going to help him to be polite or to argue on his terms. That's why I said, look, I'm going to ask you some questions. Your job is to reflect honestly and answer honestly. Even though he had to create a fake new profile because his other one kept getting timed out because he kept being a dick. I gave him another shot. Hey, answer these questions. I'll make it easy. Make this one yes or no. Did he answer them? Of course not. Because his training from his family and society is to be a savage. Eat brains. Literally, eat brains. Eat the logos. Shut down conversation, shut down reasoning, shut down reflection. That's the nature of human ignorance. There's a reason why we are not living in a utopia. That is it. Everyone would benefit by utopia. Why the fuck aren't we doing it? This! He demonstrated it. But for us, this easy demonstration that applies to us globally and Weirdo yesterday in the chat is also our problem. Because we are also human beings. Meaning, we have a false image of ourselves. That will function as a kind of negative way of being. Way of being and also state of mind. That's the paradigm. Everything we do, it'll be from that way of being. Just like everything the builder does will be from the blueprints. That's my way of being. I'm a MAGA. Everything I say is racist. Everything I do is hurtful and racist. Everything I say, do, and create is going to be something hurtful and racist. That's what belief is. Causing him to function in a certain role, not the role of the builder. So for each of these, we have the ideal as well. The true self is our goal, the first and final cause, which is why we're in time. We get to experience and reflect. Therefore, time is where we develop understanding. The true self. But also we can experience the model of the self as pure being, divine luminosity. Compared to human problems, a negative way of being. I'm always a troll. I'm always a goblin. I'm always a crybaby. I'm always a racist. I'm always a Jew. I'm always a Christian. I'm always a Mormon. See, a way of being that they're identified with because it's a reflection of their false image of the self. That's their mask. But we want the brilliant light of pure being, or not a state of mind, but mind itself. Notice mind itself, or self-mind. Not a state of mind, but mind itself or self-mind. So what's the role? How do we facilitate for ourselves and others a movement through our negative material cause? Where are we closed-minded? Where are we stuck? Stuck. What's the kind of hey, you're stuck. Good. Let's reflect. Hey, you're seeking a goal, right? Yes, and it's important to you. Yes. So, and it's important enough for you to go through this challenging process. Oh, yes, I've got courage. Great. Got courage. You're in it. You're in the game. Let's examine and find your interpretations in your activities, in the drama, in your dreams, daydreams, fantasies, problems. Well, I don't think it's interpretations. I think I'm seeing reality. That's why you need a dialectician. Therefore, the highest self-functioning, or the ideal, what we're actually after, isn't the role of being the fighter or the instigator or the clown or the one that defends the bullies. It's not that cry-bully kind of thing. It's the role of the highest self-functioning, which of course is the dialectician. Oops. As the instrumental or doer cause. So what's our purpose? To have the role of the dialectician. To have the state of mind of self-mind or being. To know the self. So that's the first and final cause, to know the true self. But hey, just as Billy can't have a place to live unless he has the good blueprints and the builder and the building and the bricks, has all these, so too, can you really be the true self without having experienced mind? Because as we said, just as the false image of the self is hard to see because you can't see it, because you didn't put words on it, because you take it for granted as well, by going through this experience of divine luminosity, But not like Jesus, who had the transfiguration experience and didn't reflect on it, didn't do a dialectic on it, just used his beliefs to make sense of it, causing his tragic end, or his pathetic end. Because a tragic hero realizes his way of being caused his role, his interpretation, and caused his failure. That's the tragic hero, a Greek tragedy. But Jesus had a negative way of being based on a false image of himself, based on his family and religious upbringing, a certain role that he played out causing his end, and he didn't realize. See, a tragic hero realizes when it's too late. A true hero like Achilles realizes when there's still time for him to turn himself around or correct himself. We're not blaming people. We all have this. We all have problems. The idea is not to blame ourselves or look back and lament not having learned earlier, but it's to wake up and start whenever you can. If you got some time in your life, do it now. Oh, but I was so ignorant before. Yeah, everyone was. Oh, but I did so many crimes before. Yeah, no joke, everyone does. To the extent they got away with it, to the extent they have power over others. I saw an interview with the time of recording. There was this there's this guy in Bondi Beach in Sydney who stopped a mass shooter, and I saw him on the internet this morning getting a check. People donated $2.5 million to him. He stopped a mass shooter unarmed himself, and he got the check and he said, we're all human beings. And it was a nice day that day. The women and men and teenagers and children all having fun. It was a nice day. And he said, the idea is to see that and move forward. Don't sit back and accept bad things. Put the bad things behind us. And don't tolerate badness. In that sense, as soon as you realize your game or your purpose is to go through these causes and realize that if you don't, you are still going to be in those causes, you'll just be in this list, the negative list, the list of our patho logos or fate, keeping us chained to our problems or fate in this life and beyond. Then start today. As soon as Frodo comes in and says,
I'm looking for someone to share in an adventure.
Gandalf, I mean. Or Hagrid says,
You're a wizard, Harry.
Or Obi-Wan Kenobi says, You're a Jedi, Luke. New sound drop. Then start. Start what? Reflecting on when you're stuck, which means you have to be the ideal material condition, which means you have to be not closed-mindedness and stuck, but open-minded, curious, and seeking truth. So what's the opposite of seeking truth? This is the fun of analogy. We've recognized the most important thing is to seek truth. You won't reach the true self unless you're seeking the truth of self. You won't experience the true nature of reality or mind if you're not seeking the truth of reality. You won't master your true functioning, the dialectician, the ideal functioning of self, unless you're seeking your true functioning. So seeking truth has to be the first cause that you're working with. Yesterday we talked about getting on the seat, the midwife talk or the dream analysis talk. Therefore, in seeing the positive about the logos that we are here to follow and master, the logos of self, or self-logos. Notice each one of these terms, we could chuck the word in self. The true self, the self-logos, self-mind, self-functioning. Which means we've noticed a pattern. And the fun with analogies is if you've noticed a pattern, you can apply that pattern further to gain insights. For example, this is analogy. This is how analogy works. If you start just really quick with an example, if somebody says a king is to his subjects like or as to a shepherd is to his sheep, that's an analogy. And you've established a pattern. But then if he says, hey, you know what else a king has, what else a shepherd has is he has a sheepdog. And he sleeps in a tent. See, because we've established and noticed and established a pattern, we can then ask, oh, we can have fun. What's the equivalent of the sheepdog to the king? What's the equivalent of the tent to a king? Castle. So that's the fun. Now that we say, hang on a second, what's the equivalent of closed-mindedness but to the self? Open-mindedness. What's the opposite of seeking truth? Certainty. The state of mind of certainty, sometimes called the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is a principle that the most... Oh, spam.
But that's funny. It's like the whole business model is like, hey, we can trick the platforms, and then hopefully we can trick people into thinking that these are real people to do like...
Trying to trick the people to think that we're the real people so you can make the money. To that we say...
You have severe mental illness, and you need to be fucking checked into an insane asylum.
I'm a human. I don't listen to robots.
I don't listen to robots.
Wrong. You're so wrong.
You're so wrong.
But that's okay. We're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
We're all allowed to be wrong sometimes.
You moron. You absolute fucking buffoon. You goddamn idiot.
Goddamn idiot.
But you shut up. You shut the hell up for a second. You're not real.
You're not real. Spam. So, certainty. The supreme confidence. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is usually the most ignorant, closed-minded, racist, stupid people believe they are the smartest, i.e. anti-vaxxers. I know nothing about medicine, but I am so confident that those who have studied medicine, I am smarter than them. Billionaires. I know nothing and I happen to get lucky within the gamble of capitalism, usually because I was born into wealth and privilege, but I should make political decisions because I'm the smart one. The Dunning-Kruger effect. Certainty. In belief rather than seeking truth. But also you can notice a pattern within the set. The true self, the self-mind, the self-functioning. So what would be the ideal material cause of the soul? Self-open-mindedness? Self-free? I don't know, where are we going to put self in there? If we're saying self-free, we could say stuck in anti-self, a false image of self. Whereas we want to be free. Therefore, we can gain an insight into what our intended material cause is. To go through midwifery to remove this pattern. This is all one. To get rid of our closed-mindedness, our certainty, our being stuck in the anti-self, or fate, so that we can free ourselves from that to become the ideal material cause. free, self-free, self-freedom. And what are we going to make use of that freedom? How are we going to make use of that freedom? Having gone through this set of causes, to find where you recognize a pattern of certainty, or a pattern of being stuck, a pattern of closed-mindedness, a pattern of being blocked. Put blocked in there, I guess. Blocked from what? Blocked from drinking the bleach? No, a block isn't being blocked from doing bad things. That's actually good. That's why we have safety caps on bleach. A block has to be a block from our true nature, goals, and highest purpose. Therefore, what makes these sets of causes the ideal? The self-logos, the word self and the word logos. Now, what we're also seeing is logos and ousia are intimately connected, because you use logos or reasoning to reflect. And it allows for your experience of self-mind or ousia, which is also the logos as being. So logos and ousia are connected in an interesting way that we can be puzzled about. So you're stuck in the anti-logos, you're closed-minded, you're certain in your belief, or you're blocked from not drinking bleach, but blocked from, zoom in a little bit, blocked from the logos, self-logos. So all of this is the negative material cause within the pathologos, or fate, or problems. So therefore, closed-minded versus open-minded and curious. Certainty and belief as opposed to seeking truth. Self-free compared to stuck in the anti-self. Blocked from the self-logos compared to following. So discovering, learning about, and following the self-logos. Follow the logos. There's a new bumper sticker. Follow the self-logos. And of course, the more we learn, the more we can add. So that's the ideal material cause. Even when you reach the true self, you'll still be curious and open-minded. You'll still be seeking truth. You'll still be free. And you'll still be following the logos. Only what they say is you'll do it with a smile, because you can see it. So we can start by seeking it and following it, but when you get to the true self, you're not interpreting, projecting, you are seeing. The self logos. So our ideal activity cause is to see and not interpret the self logos. But seeing as it's an activity, we're not just seeing or looking for, but we are following. See and following. So in other words, in midwifery, this is an important distinction, because Our problems want us to pretend to be the knower. People like to give advice, being a professional opinion haver as if their opinions are super important or whatever, like their parents. Therefore, even when we get into the practice of doing dream analysis and being a dialectician, there is a pathologos-based urge to be the knower. In other words, I know your problem. So when I look at your dreams, I'm looking for a way of finding what I think I already know. That's not dream analysis. The dream knows. Our job is to follow the self-logos of the dream. See and follow the self-logos. Which means our material cause has to be following the self-logos, or seeking the self-logos, or, to say it another way, love. So that's love. Love is a desire for what we want. Love, understanding. Which would mean the opposite would be our problem. What's the opposite of loving understanding? Fearing understanding. Therefore, Weirdo yesterday who came into the chat, only material things you can understand. Only opinions are worth reflecting on. What do we see of the haters? The haters in the text are the chorus of the haters that come in and say, no, don't do philosophy, give up and just do belief. Fear, mind? Nope. Afraid? So the anti-chorus claps back at the chorus in the text. So the anti-chorus says, hey, look, put aside your desire to escape and retreat into your beliefs and see if there is something here for you. Excuse me. Let's wait and see what is to be said. This is the very first time. This is page 2. Already we have the chorus coming up and saying, before the player's even begun. This is our friend in chat yesterday. He was the first chorus. He hasn't read one page of the book. He hasn't listened to one podcast. His first words are, stop it. Don't do understanding. Oh, I'm so scared of my mind. Just have opinions and beliefs. The chorus. This was the guy yesterday. He sounds like this. Another showing of this empty play is about to begin. I'll tell you that whatever is said will never get you anywhere.
How can anyone claim to speak for Socrates or Jesus? On the face of it, it is arrogantly presumptuous. A dialogue with these two is as improbable as it is impossible. It's going to be as foolish as it will be absurd.
Notice, Weirdo yesterday hasn't had one conversation with me. Hasn't reflected on the text at all, ever. He just knows it's going to be absurd. He knows it's going to be foolish. His first logos was, you can't understand anything, you can only have opinions, and all you can think about is the physical world. Literally a personification of human ignorance. That's why I said it's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard. This is him.
There are so many interpreters who claim to speak the truth. The roars of these conflicting voices drown each other out. How can anyone find a single voice amidst these voices that is true above all the others? These voices may appear sometimes to share something, but their differences is what confuse us believers. Once you've heard the voice of Jerusalem, who needs the empty chatter from Athens?
Once you have belief, fight understanding. Nature of human ignorance and why we are killing each other and the planet. Individually, as we saw with a single chatter, collectively, as we see with genocides and the racing towards our extinction.
You may not be able to escape
The play,
you're gonna see, but we can warn you that nothing worthwhile can follow. The best of words is a hollow echo of man's stupidity.
see, words are empty and hollow. Words are our thing. Notice. What the word that we are using to point to the positive causes, our literal purpose and meaning of life, is logos, which is words. And the negative category, the 5 causes, the 5 ways of understanding the fundamental cause of human problems, is pathologos, against the logos. A false logos, or a certainty in false belief, blocked from the logos, fearing the logos, fearing understanding. So to say words are empty or words have no meaning is the height of human ignorance and problems. But also a beautiful demonstration of the essence of human problems. A single statement, words have no meaning, which is fascinating because that's the nature of fascism. The right-wingers, the conservatives, the fascists, the Republicans, they always say, words have no meaning. When Trump said this thing, forget about it. He was trolling and maybe he means the opposite. Words have no meaning. Shut up. Right? Say to a Buddhist guru, I have these thoughts. Thoughts have no meaning. Just ignore them. You can't think your way into enlightenment. It's just a confusion. It's Maya. It's distraction. It's illusion. Let them float away like a cloud. The nature of human problems. Yes, even people who rise to positions of power still have a fucking problem. We're here to address our problem. Our problem is an opposition to words, through which we gain understanding. If we follow words, we are doing our activity. Seek and follow the self-logos, ideally through dreams. Applying the dialectic, meaning the ideal functioning or instrumental cause, is a master of words or understanding, the dialectician. Which is also the method for reaching the ideal paradigm of reality, the whole of the self in experience, self-mind, or the logos itself. By having by the way, if you have that experience without understanding, you will conclude it's the highest experience because it is the highest experience. But with understanding, you can reflect on experience and say, hey, every experience must have its cause. So you need understanding to go through the greatest experience to posit that there's something beyond, because it's literally beyond experience. Meaning you can go from the paradigm to the reason and cause of the paradigm the first and final cause, the self, that you won't recognize without the logos, understanding, words, because words allow you to go beyond experience to a level of reality that's a different kind of experience that transcends the experiences that we are familiar with, either in the physical world or the world of being. It's a level up to a whole new kettle of fish. So, the self logos, or our highest purpose or destiny. Escape fate and reach our destiny. This is the only way you should use the word destiny. That for the sake of which our intended purpose, the first and final cause, our highest excellence. Now, it's also the destiny of man, because it's not just for one person, it's for all living beings. So, logos, words, it's our ticket. I got a magic ticket. Wow. I got a magic twinkle in my eye. Thank you. Thank you. I also stream music. Check out Jed Phoenix music on Twitch. That's my first commercial. So, words and problems. People who come in and try and shut down words. Don't ask questions, your boss wants you on the clock. Don't ask questions, you'll go to hell. Don't ask questions, I'm the teacher here. Don't ask questions, give answers. Notice, Weirdo yesterday came in with no questions, but a whole bunch of answers. Why? Because that was his teacher. Why? Because his teachers are ignorant. Requires courage to see that about our beloved teachers. Overcome Stockholm Syndrome.
Once you've heard the voice of Jerusalem, who needs empty chatter from Athens? Well, you may not be able to escape this play, but we can warn you that nothing worthwhile can continue. What can follow? The best of words is a hollow echo of man's stupidity.
Notice how many religious and political figures say words are no meaning, words are stupid, think thoughts are just empty. It's just your problem. Well, if it is your problem, it should be understandable. Meaning even the words that come up as tangents and distractions, if reflected on properly, can give you insight into the nature of problems that you're here to solve. Don't tell your local Buddhist guru that, though. He might get mad and throw his stick at you.
The best of words is a hollow echo of man's stupidity in trying to comprehend the incomprehensible.
You just can't comprehend it. It's just too big for your little small bean brain. You're just too much of a bad noodle. You're a small bean. I love that. I love the small bean defense. It's so universally applicable. We're not small beans, we are...
No, that was a good decision. That was an inherently good decision.
We make good decisions. Because...
I'm always good. And that is what I stand for, being good all the time.
We are good all the time.
No, you're not the one that's mentally unwell. You're brave. You are crossing into new boundaries.
We are brave and crossing new boundaries. That's the positive... That's the positive voice of the oracle on the soundboard. Because often she says,
Vapid cunt.
oh my goodness. Okay, once you've heard the voice, blah, 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 blah. Right.
Man can never understand his own folly because of his own inherent ignorance.
So notice the two fundamental cases that are being made by haters is you can't understand your ignorance and folly, you're stuck in your problems, all you can do is lock people up in prisons or drop bombs on their head or enslave them or threaten them with hell. That's the first false premise inherent to man's ignorance. And the second false premise is our words are bad and you can't understand the divine or the incomprehensible. So, already thumbs down, already shooting down the two things we are literally here to do, which are reflected in these two sets of causes. Same material, activity, instrumental, paradigm, and first and final causes applied to what we get from childhood, all human beings. Therefore, our purpose is to go through this list of causes in a purification way. And then once we're free of this ignorance, we are seeking truth instead of defending our ignorance. We are open and curious instead of certain in our beliefs. We love understanding instead of fearing understanding. We can jump from this to this, upgrade, level up, and go through these causes in the ideal way. What makes them the ideal? The addition of two words, self and logos. Or three if you want to add in ousia. Self, mind, understanding, which happens to be the first three causes. Our therefore goal is to know the true self with a state of mind of true ousia, mind or being. So let's throw the word ousia in that list as well, because that's what ousia is. So self-mind, or being, the realm of being. Notice our physical world is always in change, so we call it the world of becoming, ousia. So somehow the true self or the whole self will have all of these elements: knowing the true self, true ousia or self ousia, understanding, self-understanding, self-functioning, the dialectician. So throw in the word understanding. So the dialectician, being, state of mind, that's ousia and understanding. The activity that you engage in from the self with the ideal state of mind, with the ideal functioning, will be to see and follow the logos. To see what's there, see the unfolding of the logos through self and its desire to return. Direction, the path of return. But also, in comparing people's interpretations against the self logos, when do they, hey, if you know in principle the self is the first and final cause, then it's easier to recognize false beliefs if people start their belief by saying, you know how I suck? You don't suck. You're loyal to a teacher who taught you suck. And you don't even know that because the teaching was a fake teaching because it was without words and questions. No ousia reflection, no understanding, and therefore a false idea of yourself that you now cannot see in the fault. You are blocked from your journey to see and follow the logos, and you are closed-minded and not open, and you are blocked or a slave or not free. So, our human problems are anything that blocks or are function in opposition to the ideal five causes, which is the addition of self-logos to everything. The self-logos self, the self-logos mind, the self-logos and ousia, functioning, the self-logos activity, the self-logos material, nature. So, the true self, self-mind, the dialectician, which is self-functioning, see and follow the logos, in an open, curious, material state of the soul, seeking truth, free, loving understanding. Not blocked from the self logos, but open to self logos. Isn't that interesting? So, and the haters say you can't do that. Well, did I have the board up a second ago? There it is. So, why are causes important? Because we want to know why or how. How do problems happen? Or why are we here? And notice, people can have fun by using one of the lower causes. If you eat the last piece of pizza, or you take someone's piece of pizza from their plate and eat it, and someone goes, "Hey, why did you eat my pizza?" They'll think they're funny by answering one of the other causes. Because I'm hungry. Ha 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 ha. Because that is a true answer. He did take it because he was hungry, but that's not the cause we were pointing to. And that troll from yesterday tried to play that game. He thought he was funny or trolling by saying, you know what the meaning of life is? To eat food. Which is, of course, in our journey from the physical dimension to the realm of mind, or Usia and Logos, we have to meet the material conditions of our body. So he thought he was funny by picking one of these physical causes and none of the mind causes, the meaning, the higher causes. He thought he was funny because he picked the lowest. He wasn't funny, he was predictable. Because people who are stuck in belief can't do anything good. They can only do harm. The harm that they do is in opposition to good people. So if you find an intelligent, creative, beautiful streamer out there doing good work, sharing and understanding, reflecting on problems, reflecting on questions and encouraging self-reflection and solving problems through understanding, you'll get people who think, here is an opportunity to crush someone, because when I was doing good, my parents crushed me. And because I'm blocked in belief, all I can do is imitate my parents. So they will come in and try and destroy it. Blow up, genocide the Palestinians. Blow up the planet. Enslave people through capitalism. They can only do harm. Another way of saying do harm is reduce everything to its least significant stuff. You're not a human being with human rights. You're an illegal alien. You have no feelings. You're a monkey. Says the American Christians to the Middle Eastern Muslims. You have no feelings and rights and dignity and meaning. You're a rat, a cockroach, a vermin, says the Germans to the Jews. And the Jews to the Palestinians. That's the functioning within their belief system. Now, of course, not every Jew is justifying this, but it is part of the tradition. Kill who you're intended to kill, as Abraham was instructed to kill. In other words, we have to be honest. Just like not every capitalist is killing people for profit, but capitalism does do that. So that's what he was doing. He was picking the stupidest answer and thinking it was funny. Eat food is the meaning of life. Because there is a natural or a revulsion against his purpose, because he's still a loyal foot soldier Nazi to his family tradition. all humans are like this to a degree. There are better people because of the work they've done in prior lifetimes or in this lifetime who are less stuck in human problems or the chorus and more like Socrates or the anti-chorus, going through the ideal functioning of the material cause. They are taking care of themselves as best they can. They care about eating healthy and taking care of their physical body, maybe even appreciating their physical form. That's a good thing. Dancing. It's a physical material cause. Down here, we're in the physical realm, taking care of the body. They reflect on meaningful work. Now, the most meaningful, of course, is that which reflects the Logos, which is Pierre Grimes' works, or the Balboa translations of Plato. They're the ideal ones, particularly Parmenides. But Pierre Grimes has a lot of good stuff. That's the ideal kind of reading. But hey, talking. They like to yap. Not about gossip. Or there are some who are at an even higher level who recognize, as we saw in the text, that the many seek to be entertained. The many seek to be entertained and not taught. So there are some who are even more artful, like us in this with our funny sound drops.
Brain rot escalates.
So we try and use the escalating brain rot to appeal to people. I don't know how good we're doing at that because it's just all philosophy all the time. All philosophy all the time. All philosophy all the time. So, reflecting on what's most meaningful, or if people are interested in gossip or music, like for me as a musician, people might get interested in music, but I can try and point to the most meaningful ideas of the music and reflect on those. There are some people who get interested in gossip, but they don't know how to relate to beauty. Oh, how long have you been playing guitar? Where are you from? No. Only questions about ideas. And ideas that you found interesting or beautiful. Apollo, Aphrodite. Interesting, understanding, Apollo, Logos. Beautiful, simple, inspiring, Aphrodite. You need both, love and Logos. Or beauty and Logos. So that's the activity that we can function through, encouraging self-reflection. So that's the doer. That's how we relate to our friends. Sometimes, transitioning from gossip to meaning. Ultimately, to discover the model of everything, to realize that all problems are understandable because we've been understanding them, because we've been reading and reflecting. All problems are solvable and our highest goals are reachable because I know the more I understand basketball, the better I get at basketball. The more I understand and reflect with friends about what I read, the better I can master that. The better I can become at music, at cooking, at reading. Allowing me to never beat myself up or blame or shame or guilt or punish myself or others. Allowing me to be open and curious and seeking truth about our problems or about our highest goals, which is the transition into the true game of man. Now you're a Jedi. Now you can be the material cause in the realm of mind, which brings us over to where we are here. To see and follow the self-logos, therefore, is the greatest activity cause. Ideally through dream, not interpretation, analysis. Dream analysis is the ideal activity human beings can engage in And they won't be interested in doing that unless they have met all the other conditions. They've got their nose in a text they're reading. They are seeking their highest goals. They are talking about it and reflecting on it with their friends. They are discovering the dialectic, because how can you do dream analysis if you don't know the dialectic or about the dialectic? Hey, I'm gonna, like the weirdo in chat yesterday, I'm gonna ask you questions. Your job is to answer truthfully. No, I want to ask the questions. I'm some random fucking dude. I want to be the one in charge. I want to be the knower, like my ignorant parents. No, that's not how it works. I know what my dreams mean. No, you don't. Why would your dream give you something you already know? Was it getting paid by the hour? It's giving you something you don't know. Therefore, you can't be the one leading. Therefore, a recognition of the inherent understandability through the dialectic of all of our problems, thoughts, distractions, tangents, fantasies, and a recognition of the inherent intelligibility of the spiritual task through understanding, not rejecting understanding, is necessary to be in the human quest, to be a Jedi. Gotta love understanding. And you also have to be challenging any of your blocks or fear of understanding. And that brings us to where we are in the text. So, how can you be doing dream analysis if you're not seeking to remove your problems and reach your excellence? Can't. Therefore, necessary precondition or activity in the physical world to be reading and doing those things. Whereas the anti-chorus comes in and says, hey, you think that a man can never understand his folly because of his inherent ignorance? You think that there's no meaning to words and you can't experience and understand your highest goals because they're incomprehensible? The anti-chorus comes in and says, oh, I gotta press the button. I remember. Fix that. They have Chad voice.
Put aside your desire to escape and see if there really is something here for you. Let's wait and see what's here to be said. You believe nothing will come from this, don't you? I'll tell you that everything you will hear discussed right here. I'll tell you that everything you will hear discussed right here can turn you around and to ponder something truly astonishing. Now just watch how this symphony of words can overcome your chorus of dissonant voices.
Notice, believers can only shout ignorance. Ever seen Fox News? Ever seen Debate Bro podcasts? Ever seen any of that crap garbage? Ever been to a protest? How different would protest be if it weren't just people shouting their beliefs, but human beings organized through understanding, following a leader of the dialectic, to be unified on a common goal, to follow the rational steps to reach that goal.
Awaken your curiosity and you will see how well-placed words dispel your confusion.
Well-placed words. We want the right words, so read the text. Practice naming, labeling properly. And not just the right words, but place them in the right order. That's what we've been doing here. The ordering of the words, placing them in the right way. and they can dispel our confusion.
Perhaps behind your desire to flee, you are afraid of what new fear may come from all this. Could your worry conceal your fear of the mind?
So, the reason Weirdo yesterday in chat was so interested in vomiting his problems, projecting his problems, which also includes cry bullying. I'm not projecting, you're projecting. I'm not doing it, you're doing it. Notice ignorance. No justification, no reason, no logic, no ordering of words. It's just, oh, you're a bully. While bullying. Cry bullies. And the reason why he tried to do it with his first fucking word, his first sentence, was fear of mind. There's a fear. Why come in here and try and shut down what we're doing? Nothing to do with you. You don't have to be a part of the stream. Fear of mind. Why do people hate those who are most intelligent? And the people who are most hateful are the most close-minded? They can't come up with creative insults. They're just imitating or parroting. Whoops. Hang on. Sorry about that. I had to just close down some windows because my internet connection was dropping out. But we're back and we're killing it.
All checks out.
All checks out.
The primary purpose of peanuts is not to
Peanuts.
murder, it's to eat for sustenance.
Emma from the Majority Report, insightful as always about peanuts. Thank you so much.
These absolute dullards, borderline chimps, who want to kiss a fox.
Want to kiss a
Fucking
fox.
bitch, pussy ass fucker.
Pussy. Fucker.
Like, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Fuck you.
These absolute
Just shut the fuck up forever.
gooners.
Calm your fucking tits.
I like when my soundboard argues with itself. So, fear of the mind. That's it. We have been trained to fear the very mind we're here to develop. What's mind? Logos and ousia. What does it lead to? The self. Why is it important? Because as we said today, it's hard to see the self because it transcends the regular way that we use words. Because the regular way we use words either apply to the physical dimension, the physical world of becoming, or the realm of mind, our high experience, our light experiences, our enlightenment experiences. Both need to be understood, but look, if the experience of mind or being is that which exists itself, existence itself, the paradigm or model, there's our state of mind of self, then that which is that for the sake of which there is an unfolding from the inherent ousia and logos of self into the divine luminosity state of mind, ideal state of mind, into its functioning through understanding to give rise to this physical world of beliefs through which we can perfect ourselves as a material cause through the addressing of our pathologos and belief, fake ousia and fake logos, allowing us to engage in the activity of dream analysis because that same self and mind is communicating to us through dreams, allowing us as the open and receptive material cause to participate into the activity cause of dream analysis, and in doing so we're perfecting our true understanding or logos, which is in the realm of this mind. So we are learning to engage in mind through understanding in the dialectic, which culminates in the experience of the whole of all parts or existence itself. That's the cognitive functional knowing or the ideal state of mind. And you can bring all of that together. All of that's necessary. The ideal material cause, the ideal activity cause, the ideal functioning cause, instrumental cause of dialectic or understanding, and the ideal state of mind itself is all the causes of building a house needed to eventually have a house to live in or to know the self. Because the self has the ousia and logos that unfolds in all of these profound, brilliant ways. And providential. Providential means prior to nous, prior to even knowing. So there's a goodness that extends through the paradigm and the functioning and the activity to the material. Therefore, prior, providence, was the profound goodness that's being extended through this game, which allows us to play. If there wasn't a goodness extended to us in each moment by the intelligibility of our problems and through the intelligibility of our dreams, we couldn't benefit. We couldn't reach our good. We couldn't go through this process. We would be fucked. We would be...
Oh my fuck.
Oh my fuck.
Vapid cunt.
We would just be vapid. We would be stuck.
You're a baby. You're a little baby.
You're a little baby. We stuck as little babies. So, not only is this the paradigm of our positive causes or our development, the two causes down here, material and dream analysis, the two causes of mind, dialectician understanding, divine luminosity, the ideal state of mind. To make that jump, to have a house to live in, to be the whole self or the good self or the true self or the one self. But likewise, our problems are the same thing. There is an inherent pathologos, an inherent, not true ousia, but belief state of mind. So there's an inherent ousia and logos in our false image of the self that manifests in our, negative state of mind, feeling bad, feeling angry, feeling depressed, feeling sadism, to desire inflicting suffering on others as a mark of knowing, the addiction to that, the cruelty that people in power inflict onto those who are most powerless, whether you be a KKK or ICE person or a president on the Epstein files or a leader of Israel watching the children get starved to death. It's sadism, which is a state of mind as a compensation or surrogate for actual knowing based on what's inherent to the ousia and logos of the false image of the self. So our problems, a false image of the self that manifests in a false state of mind, in a false role, not the role of the dialectician, but the role of the abuser, the sadist, the tyrant, the thug, the bully, the cry bully, that manifests in incorrect activities, not dream analysis, but everything else. Shooting people down, arguing, debate, causing the negative material cause, a closed-minded, ignorant piece of garbage, to whom we say,
Wrong. You're so wrong.
You're so
But
wrong.
that's okay. We're all allowed to
That's
be
okay.
wrong sometimes.
You're allowed to be wrong sometimes, so long as you recognize that this negative material cause, closed-minded, certain, fearing the mind, even though you're completely ignorant, you're saying problems can't be solved and reality can't be reached through understanding. That's wrong and stupid and ignorant, but you are saying it with confidence or certainty. That's the negative material cause. You are the most savage. Notice, it's that certainty that justifies killing human beings because of your bullshit-ass wrong beliefs. Abrahamic religious beliefs, Nazi beliefs, sexist beliefs, racist beliefs, nationalistic beliefs. It's all the same. That's the worst. Our journey, therefore, is to move from savages to sages. Therefore, to find your job is as Sherlock Holmes. It's not a blame game. Because you have this doesn't make you bad. Your question that determines your character is what you do about it. Do you say, not me? My religion was the right one. I was born at the right period of time. Go back 100 years. Do you think their beliefs are perfect? Look at some religion 1,000 years ago. Do you think they were the right ones? Of fucking course not. Look at anyone else's religion. Obviously they're wrong, right? Now do it to yourself. That's what it means to have integrity. But hey, you don't blow people up for being ignorant. You create the conditions for this movement. What movement? To put on your Sherlock Holmes cap and go through these causes by seeing what's most obvious, which is the lowest cause and most obvious. Anyone can see a brick. It takes a lot more to see the blueprints of the house, to use the building analogy. So what's most obvious? Your material cause. When are you pissed off? When are you angry? When are you sad? When are you fighting? When are you being a slave to other people? Trace that back to the activities you go through in your life. When did it happen today? When did it happen yesterday? Is there a series of this through your life? Can you trace those activities back to an origin scene? If you haven't noticed the pattern of activities, look at your daydreams, your fantasies, your distractions. The activity cause. Therefore, are you playing a certain role in each of these problems? Are you being a tyrant? Are you being a thug? Are you being a Cinderella? Are you being a slave? Are you whatever? Supporting other tyrants? Are you being a bootlicker? What's your role? And if you've traced it back through to the origin scene, what was your role in the origin scene? Now, what was the state of mind you've been in? And if you found the origin scene, what is the state of mind to those people that you believed that was a fake knowing, a fake ousia, because that's your idea of belief or what's true, real, and good that you are seeking. That's the kind of people you're going to date and be attracted to. That's the kind of thug you'll be when you're a boss or a tyrant and you're in your problem. And now let's put the actual activity of understanding. What's our tool? Words. So anyone who says don't think, or thoughts are illnesses, or you can't solve problems, or thinking is bad, is fucking with you. Because it's by going back to that origin scene and putting the words on it that you can free. Notice the only people who will tell you don't use thinking, or thinking is an illness, or thoughts are bad, are always authority figures within belief traditions, be they religious or Buddhist or Taoist or Hindu or whatever. If any fucker comes to you and says thinking is a sickness, they don't want you to think about them, because they are also ignorant and they at some level know it. But it's by putting words on our earliest teachers that we become free of that ignorance, because it's through words that we can see. It's through words that we can function. If you can't see it, if you can't name it, you can't see it, and you can't use it. That's why all oppression is about silencing words in some way, because you're too busy paying the rent, or you don't have the speech that billionaires have to advertise. You don't own the news networks that can silence speech that do not conform with their Overton window. It's all the same. And by going through, seeing how you end up as a material cause, seeing the sorts of activities that you're blocked from, seeing your role within those activities, seeing the state of mind, you can come to a... You didn't put it in words. In other words, it's beyond words in a kind of a way. You can now infer, hypothesize, reason what you must be believing about yourself. That was beyond words because you didn't put words on it, but now you can. And what do we say? If you can put words on it, you can see it. And if you see it as false, you can be free from it. So it's by coming to that, what you must have concluded from that origin scene based on these 5 causes about yourself. Now you can put words on it. Now you can see it. You can see it when it manifests in your problems, in your blocks, in your relationships. You can see it as the first cause within your fantasies, distractions, tangents, so you don't even have to get wrapped up in them. Or the next person that you meet and you shit, I could go down a rabbit hole with that person, but I don't have to anymore because I can see it because I put words on myself. That person negging me like a weirdo yesterday, or intimidating me, or trying to get me wrapped up in his bullshit. Fuck you, I'm not interested. I am bored of that game. That's how you get bored of it. I'm just bored of it. It's boring to me. I played that game a million times. I see the steps. I see where it ends and I see where it begins. You get bored of it. Just like when you see that the word, the pattern of all problems involves steps in which you vilify the person, dehumanize them by using a word that projects your own ignorance universally. And if anyone doesn't agree with you, they're bad and wrong and therefore deserve punishment so you can justify your violence. As soon as you see that, heathen, woke, infidel, or the one that you see on TV, respect. You're dissing me, bro. Wearing a black hat is disrespectful. I'm gonna shoot you, bro. Then you will become bored with slop. Yes, you use the word disrespect, or un-American, or unpatriotic. You will only be justifying the ignorant, savage fucking stupidity of the ignorance you've got from your family that's only going to cause conflict and pain and stupidity. Boring. That's the significance of words and seeing and accurate naming. So, you are putting words on your false image of the self that manifests like the unfolding of reality, but within your own problems. So we are imitating reality itself, or self in creation itself, but in a distorted way. But in going through the process of removing your problems, you are learning through reflection the inherent nature of the self. Just like by looking at yourself in the mirror, it's not really you. Your left hand is your right hand and there's no intelligence and there's no will. It's like your pathologos. Remember, the zombie virus has a little bit of ousia. A little bit of logos. You can still say brains. That's why they're boring and it's a script. That's why Weirdo yesterday was just following the script he's going to say in every chat room. It's a shallow ousia and logos, but by going through by making use of what little you have through dream analysis and midwifery and reading, you can make use of that little bit to reflect on it. But in going through the process, you can see that your whole problem. So we are like reality in that, but we're using a shallow, distorted version of the logos. By looking at yourself in the mirror, you can learn about yourself. By going through the process of removing your pathologos and seeing it unfolded in this activity and role and state of mind, what was inherent wordlessly in the self, you've gained an insight about reality. Now you can take that process you've gone through to become free of your problems into the actual causes. Because it's the same thing, but for reality. You go through the same actual material cause in the actual activity cause of dream analysis with the actual ideal role, the dialectician, to give rise to the ideal state of mind, all of which is the logos and ousia that you can experience and reflect upon to see what was inherent in the true self. Because our goal is to see the self, but you won't see it without the words. You won't see it without all these causes. You can't have a house to live in without all of these other causes being there in their ideal sense. So, just as our false image of ourselves is beyond words because we didn't put words on it, and in putting words on it we become free of that ignorance, so too the true self is beyond words but in a higher sense, in a transcendent sense. There is logos is here there. It's just, hey, like you look at yourself in the mirror, you do have a left and right hand, it's just not that way around. It's just not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. You do have a movement as you're seeing in the mirror, but you have better motion. The motion involves intelligence and will. So everything that you've seen Up to this point, you will be able to see in the self, but you'll see it in a transcendental way. You'll make use of it, like your body. When your hands are doing the right thing in the right order attached to your arms, and your spleen is spleening, and your fingers are fingering, it gives rise to, you're still using all those things, but in a higher way with consciousness. It gives rise to a higher functioning, a whole new level. So we can wonder, what kind of self would the self be, having gone through the purification of these negative causes, realized the pattern and applied the pattern, now that we are free, open, curious, loving, understanding and seeking truth, apply it to the true causes, to go through the ideal activity, become the ideal functioning with the ideal state of mind, reflecting the self. What would the ideal self be at the end of all that? That's our goal. That's the stakes. That's what we can wonder about and imagine and talk about. That's true meditation. Taking all of that and your speculation, focused wondering and curiosity, that would be the highest kind of meditation. That's where we are in the text. By asking the question, why are things, we came to realize that you can be funny and say, hey, why are you here? Because I got legs that got me here. Without legs, I wouldn't have got here. That's funny because you're using the material cause. When I actually wanted to know about your paradigm cause, what was your reason for being here? So by answering a why question, we can answer in these 5 ways. We've also seen that there is a physical version and a physical ideal. Take care of your physical body. The greatest activity is to read and reflect as your way of being, because that will allow you to discover the paradigm of the physical world called the dialectic, that which solves all physical problems and reaches our physical excellence or ideal, so that you can become pregnant. That's the hyparxis, because it's the top of the physical world and it's the bottom of the realm of mind. Now you've transitioned from physical to the realm of mind or being, allowing us to get the ideal human, because human is, to be human is to make use of ousia and logos, which is the nature of mind. So now we can become the ideal material cause, open, curious, wondering, self-seeking truth and loving understanding, engaged in the ideal human activity cause, to become and participate with while we're doing it, and also become ourselves the ideal functioning or instrumental cause, the dialectician, allowing us to become or experience and understand. You have to look at the blueprints, you have to understand divine luminosity, so experience it, but you also have to understand it. It's no good looking at blueprints if you don't also understand it. That's not the paradigm. So the experience of enlightenment or mind knowing itself is both experience and understanding. And all of that is so you can use all of that somehow together in the ideal way, which allows for the emerging of the true self. So the physical version, to create the conditions for ousia and logos, or to create the conditions for the dialectic, and the upgrade into the ideal, which is ousia and logos, or questions and answers. What makes use of that? The dialectic. So from the physical, our ideal physical functioning is doing whatever activities you need to do to wake up to the dialectic. Once you're awake to the dialectic, you can level up and experience and transition to the true state of man, or the new dawn of man, or the new age of man in the text. It's called the dawn of the true man, or the dawn of new reason, the destiny of mankind. To know itself is to realize the nature of reality is divine. Our human task is complete. It's complicated because we seek other activities, not our ideal ones. but our human purpose is where we are. So, by the way, when we die, all those capable of this kind of learning who've gone through this kind of learning take with them what has been learned and nurtured into them, into their next life. Whatever is yet to be learned and realized becomes what must be returned to. So if you're lucky enough to have come across this stream, then, don't roll the dice and put it off until your next life. Maybe make the use of it now. But man as a whole is part of the struggle to know the self, first and final cause. It is a cosmic dance of meaning that ends when there is nothing left to learn. And the race of man ends in the state no longer of man, but that to which he has joined himself. Therefore, and all this, it comes from no other source than the Logos. The Logos drives the chariot of our soul. That's our thinking, words, reason, language, reflection, understanding, dialectic. The Logos, all that is under the word Logos, drives the chariot of our soul and leads us to the mighty doors of justice that offer a passageway into the eternal. And a mastery of those causes of the Logos, therefore, is what it means to be a sage. So, by understanding these causes and our movement through the Pathologos version and the Logos version, we understand what our purpose is as the destiny of man, but also what it means to be a sage. Therefore, our goal ends when we have got these elements. We can emerge into a new race of man, merging into that which we've been contemplating on, or as said in the text, we are no longer of man reflecting on ourselves as man, but that to which we have joined ourselves. Okay, and it was said in another way in the text. So I can't find it in the text, but he says that transition is when we are reflecting on ourselves no longer as man, reflecting on I can't find it, but the quote was reflecting on ourselves as God, or as the highest, beyond any God that exists, the first to final cause. So it's a transition into the new age of man. So the new age of man is the dawning of reason, which is Logos and Ousia, which is these causes. So therefore, that's the activity that we're seeking, because the activity is the mean term. So therefore, we can all focus on dream analysis. And as the text said, it's because dreams afford you this passage, it's a way of demystifying mysticality or demystifying spirituality. So it's through dream analysis that we can awaken the, let's see it in the text. Reflecting on dreams awaken a recursive intellectual ability that matures as it's cultivated. The contents of dreams is the activity drawn from the life of the dreamer for contemplation. The dream maker must have the spiritual map or paradigm, therefore. Oh, there's a quick clue. What would it be like to have all of the causes, including the paradigmatic cause? Well, maybe the dream maker can answer that question. Bring the logos to dreams. We can have enlightenment experiences in dreams, but through dream analysis, we can bring it to its fulfillment. It's non-interpretive, meaning it's through its dialectic, not interpretation. It's ousia and logos that is the distinctive mark of being a human that we make use of in dream analysis. Dreams come at the right time for us to learn. Therefore, the dream maker must have a profound knowledge to match the dream to the spiritual life of the dreamer. Must have an intimate knowledge of the problems we face, can condense it artfully into a few sentences and images. It gives us high and low states, so talks about our problems and our excellence. You can open up the high states or the low states to explore and remove your problems, midwifery, or open up the high states to explore and integrate your enlightenment experience, so that's philosophy. A taste, you can actually we can have that experience again in the activity of dream analysis. The dream maker must have a spiritual map. The dream maker must possess an art because it uses its skill to benefit the dreamer, like a doctor, but for the soul. Also, we are made better because we are learning to understand that art we're engaged in, so we become like the dialectician and the dream maker ourselves. So that's how we revert. So through the activity cause of dream analysis, our material cause, the ready soul, becomes like the dialectician in that we develop understanding, but we're becoming like the paradigm because we can open up those high states, and because we're engaged in the dream maker's activity, we're becoming like the dream maker who has the map. So it's the activity of dream analysis we can perfect our instrumental dialectician, paradigmatic mind, the spiritual map, and our first and final cause like the dream maker. So dream analysis, therefore, again, the ideal human activity. To carry a question is to be on a quest. I was looking for him saying, therefore, esoteric. There's no need for esoteric understanding, or like my group has it and not yours. Only the Freemasons have it. Only Thetan level 10 have it. Only the Jews have it. Only the whatever have it. No. Spirituality. Okay, we read it last time. It was Socrates saying that because dreams function as that instrumental cause, and we all have dreams, therefore we all have the capacity for psychotherapy or purification of our problems in this, and the development of our excellence to reach our highest purpose, destiny, or the true self. Meaning spirituality isn't just for a few, or for the esoteric, or for the Hare Krishnas with the shaved heads, or for the Tibetan monks with their orange robes. It's for everyone. Therefore, this is how we can become unified as a race. This is what puts an end to division and religious fighting and conflict and ignorance. My oppressive leader is better than your oppressive leader. Fuck you. My Stockholm syndrome is stronger than your Stockholm syndrome. I'm gonna murder you. Enough of that savage bullshit. We all have dreams. We can all participate in understanding. So notice these are all universal. We can all be open, curious, seeking truth. You don't have to be in the right team or be a CEO or be in the right club or be a Freemason or, buy the rights, patent the rights. We all have dream analysis, so we can all participate in the activity course too. We can all become a dialectician or the instrumental cause in this process. We can all experience mind. We are all mind. So we're all minds seeking to master the art of the dialectic, to know the self and function ideally from the self, emerging from the human race into a new state of being or race. So these causes would be the dawn of the age of reason or the new age of man, and when man finishes his job, he evolves into another state that is beyond the state of humanity. In other words, this stuff here is a precondition for entering the true race of man and the new age of man, where we can find sameness and universality and benefit and goodness. But even that comes to an end when we perfect all of these causes according to Logos in Ousia, the ideal or Logos and Ousia version of those causes. Just as if you have all of these causes of the house, it will emerge into Billy living somewhere. So too, as we perfect these as a human race, individually or collectively, we can emerge from a human being into the next stage of our evolution. Therefore, in principle, people who are stuck in belief oppose Logos and Ousia. They oppose their own goodness and benefit. They are fiercely loyal to it, and also they play out an understandable, predictable, easy to see script that seeks to project their individual personal problems universally, so that you can give a word that vilifies another person for not conforming with your ignorance, woke, heathen, sinner, goyim, whatever. So you can justify the infliction of violence upon that person under the lie pretense of punishment somehow makes you learn, which is only all of those steps are a script that everyone plays, making drama and slop and gossip boring in service of the first and final cause, the state of self they think is ideal, which is nothing other than how their parents looked when they were 4. When their parents were crushing them in the same way, according to the same script that their grandparents punished them and their grandparents punished them, and so on and so on. So the nature of human problems can be described as a fear of the mind through those 5 causes. A fear in opposition to the mind through those 5 causes. Our job, therefore, is to overcome that, to participate in mind, which is to participate in Logos and Ousia, or take those 5 causes and apply Logos and Ousia to them, giving us the ideal material, activities, instrumental, paradigmatic, and final cause. And if we do that, we are in the new age of man, doing our intended function. Therefore, that's our purpose as humanity, as human beings, to purify the opposition to Logos and Ousia and self, by working through those causes backwards to find the false self, freeing us to engage in those causes once again, but to the true self. And that means that if we go through the activity and nurture our intended function as human beings, we can give rise to a greater whole where we, as we read in the text, can transition from humans into a race of being no longer of humans, but what we will call the true self. Socrates on his last day said, "That's where I am. I'm not coming around back into the house of Hades, planet Earth again, because I've gone through that process. I'm a master of the Logos, both dream analysis, applied to, dream analysis 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 the causes with the Logos and Ousia, and the causes without it in opposition to it. In other words, I've gone through philosophical midwifery to remove my problems. I've gone through the 5 causes to master the dialectic, and I did dream analysis all the way. I've done my work. Now, Socrates says, people think the realm of being is just the next dimension. No. There's another level above that. Just like fish might think that they are in the real world, but maybe a fish can look up and see that what they thought was air was actually water. These humans are out there on a whole different plane. What was air to us is water to them. What's air to them is a different kind of a thing to us. Equally so, the emergence, when we master those causes through the mastery of the dialectic, the single activity that we are here to master as a skill and art, that's the learning and nurture of our soul, we can emerge into a new race of man for having fulfilled our destiny or purpose as human beings. Socrates says, that's where I am. Meet me there. That's where the real philosophy fun is happening. So if you've ever asked the question,
Where's the joy? Where's the whimsy? Where's the childlike wonder, dude?
it's in the game of the causes when applied to the dialectic or Logos and Ousia, the realm of mind. That's the human game of joy and whimsy. But that's also how we earn our passage into where Socrates is, where he says, oh boy, I am there with better men who've completed their journey here. Humans who've completed their journey here, and also gods and spirits. And we're all fellow travelers and guides on a greater journey. If you're a true philosopher, you'll race to meet me there as fast as you can. Therefore, that's our purpose. That we can define simply as mastering the art of the dialectic. That we can do through the ideal functioning or the ideal activity, the dialectic. So long as we're open, curious, doing our best to seek truth and purify ignorance as the material cause. Opening us up for the understanding and experience of the model of all of that, the model of the dialectic, the model of Logos and Ousia. And we have all 4 of those boxes ticked: material, activity, instrumental functioning as a dialectician, the map of the dialectic. Well, when you reach that, I encourage you to join our Discord and share what it's like to be in that realm beyond the true race of man. Share it with us. What's it like? And by the way, if this stream or anybody has helped you along the way, please join the Discord and share how you got there and what it was like to go through that process of mastery to help others the way you've been helped, or pass on the Dharma. You don't have to, but it would be neat and we would love it. So there's a link to Discord below. But for the rest of us, what would it be like? There's our wondering. There's the philosophical speculation that you can engage in all that you do. What better way of using your understanding and your words and your reflection? Not fantasizing on what's false, but speculating about what it would be like to be the true self. Which is also the dialectic. What better way to use a dialectic? What better way to use your time? Wouldn't that be the ideal meditation? To contemplate that? What would it like to be Billy living in his house? What would it like to be the self that transcends those 4 causes but somehow makes use of them in a higher way? We have fun here. Thank you so much for joining me. If you want a link to the text, there's a PDF below. I mentioned the Discord. If you want to donate to the channel, that is a great help. There's a link below for that. If you want to like and subscribe to YouTube and Twitch, you can do that as well. And I will see you in the next one. See you in the next one. And then